Time now for the Daily Answer, sponsored by Salem Surround on The Answer Now TV.
What year would be complete without hearing from Hunter Biden? Hunter Biden has surfaced, and he's given a new interview, and he's talked about everything from immigration to Afghanistan and his laptop in no particular order. Give me number 72 here, Paulie.
And he had mistakes like every other president has had. Some that I may disagree with, but absolutely 100% had some real failures also.
What do you think some of those failures were?
I think one of the failures was the way in which they executed the withdrawal from Afghanistan. I think it was an obvious failure. I think 13 Marines are dead. I think that there was a better way to do it. And I think that, I can blame it on his generals. I can blame it on the people, the way in which we did it. But my dad always knew this also, is that the buck stops with him. I think that was a failure.
Well, okay, I guess we agree with Hunter on that. How about illegal aliens breaking into the country? Here's Hunter on that issue, number 73.
But we don't want immigrants that are coming here illegally, draining us of resources, and also and being prioritized above people that are actual literal heroes that are coming home, that are still recovering from 20 years of endless war, or anybody else in our society.
Steve Moore is our chief economist. He joins us from the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. Steve, Merry Christmas. How about Hunter Biden? I don't know. This Christmas he's decided to unload on Dad. And he said, yeah, we screwed up our withdrawal from Afghanistan, and we shouldn't have all these illegals breaking into the country, draining our resources. Good morning, Steve-O.
Hi, Chris. Well, Merry Christmas, my friend. But you're the hardest working person in Hollywood. Listen, I mean, I just want to be through with the Bidens, don't you? I want to be done with the Bidens. I want to be done with the Clintons. I mean, go away. You've done enough damage to our country. By the way, we still have the remnants of Obama with Obamacare, which is blowing up our healthcare system. So I don't want these people around.
Not for nothing, and this really doesn't have anything to do with economics, but I will ask you this, because I made the point earlier. Donald Trump yesterday was asked about this Epstein stuff again, and specifically that Clinton was showing up in the photos and stuff. And I said, you know, this shows the humanity of Trump. He doesn't get credit for it very often, but he deserves it. The Clintons, no friends of his anymore. They used to be. Maybe he doesn't feel as badly about Bill as he does Hillary, but nevertheless, he said of Bill and others, it was very clear what he's always said about the Epstein files. There are a lot of people caught up in photos with this guy that don't have anything to do with the sex or anything illicit or illegal. He was friends with lots of people, including me, Trump said. I kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. And I don't want for innocent people who happened to befriend this guy at some point in history now to be dragged through the mud like me. It's like Trump's kind of this constant, he absorbs all the bullets and the slings and arrows, but he genuinely doesn't want it for everyone else. And he tries to keep it from people if he can, I think.
Look, I've gotten to know Trump very well over the last 8 years, and you know he is a good man. He's and by the way, he's a flawed man. We're all flawed. He has his flaws, but he is just in terms of my own relationship with Trump. Even when I was completely under fire, you may recall when I was nominated to be on the Federal Reserve Board. I mean, the bullets and the arrows were flung right into my back, and most people would have basically just. Most presidents or CEOs would have just, thrown me under the bus, and I wouldn't have even blamed them for doing that because I called him. I said, look, I don't want, the skeletons in my closet to be, to besmirch you in any way. And he stuck with me the whole way. And even when I resigned, he said, Steve, you enhanced your reputation. I mean, he's a good man. And look, as I said, I don't always, this, Chris, we've been doing this together for 5 years. I don't always agree with everything Trump does, but every time I was with him and he made a decision that I disagreed with, and that was not very often, I always believed in my heart he was doing it because he loves this country and he wants to put America first.
Yes.
And that's what
Steve
a
Moore, our
should
chief
do.
economist.
Yeah,
he does, and that's been his MO the entire time, and that's why I think, and I know you disagree on this tariff thing, but I made the case that Gorsuch asked about embargoing. Presidents can do that unilaterally, and how are tariffs much different than embargoing by 1% or 2% here or there? And I thought it was a really interesting argument. Bessent, by the way, is out there pretty regularly now giving interviews, he and Lutnick saying what they hear coming out of the Supreme Court sounds very positive. Now, I don't know if they're just wearing that publicly because that's what they hope, or if they genuinely believe the Supreme Court's about to side with them on tariffs.
Well, I've said on your show and others, I think Trump will lose, at least in part, on some of these tariffs that he's imposed. That the Supreme Court may allow some of the tariffs to stand, some of the others to require others to be repealed. It's going to be a god-awful mess when this Supreme Court decision comes down one way or the other. But I do think Trump will lose on some of it because, I mean, I'm a strict constitutionalist, and the language of the Constitution is pretty clear that taxes start in the House of Representatives. That's Article 1, Section 5 of the Constitution. The issue is whether that Trump can use national security as a means to impose these tariffs, and we'll see what I'm not a lawyer. We'll see what the Supreme Court decides. But one way or the other, I have to say, as someone who's not a big fan of tariffs, as I've said many times on your show, some of the trade deals, many of the trade deals that he's been able to negotiate have been fantastic. We're talking about well over $1 trillion of foreign investment coming into the United States. Now, Trump says $8 trillion. I don't know if it's $8 trillion, but even if it's only $1 trillion, I mean, $1 trillion is a lot of money.
The Wall Street Journal, to that point, just this week wrote an interesting story about the welfare state in the country. They put total federal welfare spending at $1.4 trillion annually. $1.4 trillion. And they said that if you, this math, it was staggering. There are 19.8 million homes identified as poverty or below poverty in this country. And so you take that $1.4 trillion and spread it out over 19.8 million homes. That's 70 grand per home.
Exactly.
Steve.
So where does all the money go? I mean, and yet we still have, 30 million people in poverty. So whatever we're doing in Washington isn't pulling people out of poverty. It's not working. And look, this is very simple, folks. I'm just a simple-minded economist. The best way to pull people out of poverty, you know how the best way to do it? Get them a job. You want to get out of poverty? Get a job. Start working. Start rising the economic ladder. We've got immigrants who come into this country, and within a couple of weeks, they've got a job, and they rise up the economic ladder. The worst thing you can do is pay people not to work, and that's what we do in welfare. We pay people not to work, and guess what? They don't work.
This NGO stuff, the funneling of money, it feels like much of Washington is really just a lot of money laundering, Steve-O. That's what I feel like we've discovered this year with Doge and other entities, yes? Marco Rubio and his findings with NGOs, over at EPA and Lee Zeldin. It's a lot of money laundering posed as government outreach.
Yeah, no, it is. And one of the things that I find so frustrating as someone who's been, involved in this fight of what we do with Obamacare, what I think we should do with Obamacare is blow the whole thing up and get rid of it. It's been a complete disaster. But just 2 weeks after the government's own auditors, Chris, not the Heritage Foundation, not American, the government's own auditors said almost $100 billion has been stolen from these programs through fraud. The Democrats, every single Democrat said, stay the course. Let's keep just pouring more money into this leaky bucket. I mean, how stupid is that? And they act as if this is just a cost of doing business. The fraud rates of these programs can be 10, 15, 20%. I called up some of the banks and some of the insurance companies and said, what's your fraud rate? In the private sector, the fraud rate is about 2 or 3%. If they had 5% fraud, they'd be out of business. And we have 10 and 15% fraud in the federal agencies.
Steve Moore is our chief economist. So here we go with about a minute left to go, Steve. Let me ask you this. As we close this year up, this will be our final conversation for 2025 and head into 2026. Give me Steve Moore's fiscal predictions.
I think that we're going to see a booming economy. I think we're going to see 4% economic growth. I think we're going to see the deficit start to fall, because the best way to reduce the deficit is grow the economy, get people back into work. I think you're going to see inflation, ready for this, Chris, fall below the 2% target. And we're going to see oil and gas prices around the country go down to as low as $2.50 a gallon.
Wow, it's $2.29, by the way, near my house. State listed all manner, Steve-O.
But California's still at like $5 a gallon.
Hey, very quickly, like 10 seconds. Who do you think is going to be the Fed chair?
Oh, I'm going to go with Kevin Hassett, my good friend Kevin. I like both Kevins. They're both fantastic, and they are going to make the dollar great again.
Kevin Hassett, the new Fed chair. You heard the predictions from Steve Moore, our chief economist. Steve-O, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thanks for everything you do for the show all year long.
Yeah, it's a great country, isn't it?
It is. We're glad for you and grateful for you. Have a good year, a good new year, and we will see you in the new year in 2026, Steve-O. Merry Christmas.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel. Stay informed anytime, anywhere with the Salem News Channel and 9:30 a.m. TheAnswer.com. This has been The Daily Answer, sponsored by Salem Surround on The Answer Now TV.